I'm Brian Casey, and I am Program Officer for Learner Engagement at Refugee Welcome Collective. For those of you who might not know, Refugee Welcome Collective collaborates with partners to provide in-depth training programs, weekly learning sessions, resources, and on-demand one-on-one assistance for sponsors, practitioners at resettlement agencies, that's probably you, refugees paired with sponsors, community and institutional partners, and others to support quality community sponsorship programs across the United States. Through knowledge sharing opportunities like this one, we bring together community engagement practitioners and guest speakers around critical issues in the community sponsorship field. Let's see, next slide. So I'm very excited to share our presenter for today is Daniel Valdez, Chief External Affairs Officer at Welcome America. There he oversees the organization's development, communications, marketing, and strategic partnerships. Daniel has a lot of extensive work, which is centered around advocacy and education, around many issues, including civic engagements, immigrant rights, racial justice, health disparities, and economic mobility. So I'm sure there's a lot of interest overlap with our participants today. Let's see, and I think Daniel is joining us from Charlotte, North Carolina. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
That is correct. And Welcoming America is based in Atlanta, Georgia. Let's see, if you're not aware with Welcoming America, but Daniel can tell you more. Let's see, I think you would be interested that Welcoming America is a nonprofit leading a movement of inclusive communities becoming more prosperous by ensuring everyone belongs. Let me see. As mentioned, I am also presenting today, Brian Casey, the Officer for Learner Engagement. In case you're curious, my work has centered around community engagement in refugee resettlement. I worked as a volunteer and sponsorship coordinator for many years, and since then have worked at the state level and national level as the community and ecumenical engagement coordinator at CWS, and now I'm thrilled to be here with Refugee Welcome Collective. We also have together with us today Grace from RWC, who is running the show, and then also we have Jordan Crumroy from Welcoming America, who is going to help us out as well. Let's see, next slide. Just a few items to mention around our webinar today. It is going to be recorded and shared and posted to our resource library. Let me see. We'll also include a link in the follow-up email. Let's see, we are also going to be using Slido today. So get your phones ready, although I believe you can also access it via your computer. Grace is going to tell you more. But we will be using Slido to do some polling questions and for the Q&A at the end. And then also, we are going to leave the questions, most of the questions until the end. But if you do have any technical issues or what have you, feel free to enter those into the chat. Also, when we do some Slidos and at the Q&A, you would be welcome to make any comments or ask any questions by raising your hand if you'd like to ask your questions yourself. Let me see. And then finally, we will be sending out a survey at the end of today's webinar as well. Let's see, next slide. Let's see.
Hi everyone, and I can explain the Slido if you have not used it before. Basically, it allows the session to be more interactive. So you can scan that QR code with your cell phone. You can also use your computer and go to slido.com and enter this number, the 3739936. And that's going to allow you to join the session. The individual questions will pop up on both our screen and your screen where you can answer them, and they'll be kind of sprinkled throughout the session as we move forward. And if you have any technical issues, like Brianne said, you can put them in the chat and I will be monitoring that to check in on that.
Great. And if you would go ahead, I know we're all busy and you might be multitasking, but do please open up that Slido, as it'll help us out as we move through the presentation. Let me see, next slide. So what we hope that you all will get out of this webinar today is that you will be able to locate and utilize Welcoming America Welcoming Week website and toolkits. And then also you'll be able to identify, we're hoping for one or more ways that you might be able to use those to leverage co-sponsor recruitment. Next slide. So to give you a preview, Daniel's going to start out. We're going to learn more about Welcoming Week. Then he's going to show us a few different elements of the website and toolkit. And then the last half, we'll talk about how you could use some of those things specifically for cultivating co-sponsors and connecting community members to volunteer and sponsorship opportunities. And then finally, we'll have the Q&A. So as we go along, please make note and keep in mind all your good questions. Next slide. Let me see. So before we jump into this year's September 8th through 17th Welcoming Week, we want to check with you with a quick Slido. If you will answer this next question here. So we want to know from you, and like Grace said, you can either open this up on your phone, the QR code's still there on your screen, or you can go to slido.com and enter in that number down there. But basically, we want to know, have you heard of Welcoming Week before? So yes, you've heard of it, but you've never really taken part or celebrated. Yes, you've heard of it. I'm sorry, the first one was yes, you've heard of it and you have taken part and participated. The second one is that you've heard but have not participated. And then your third option is no, I haven't heard. Tell me more. And that's pretty exciting. We've got some folks new to Welcoming Week. I'm glad that we can tell you more about it. So yeah, so it looks like you know, about 40% of you all actually don't know so much about Welcoming Week. So this is actually going to be great. And then many of you have heard of it, but have not celebrated Welcoming Week or participated in the past. And then about 25% of you all have had a really good Welcoming Weeks in years past. So yeah, great. With that, we will with that we will move along, and I'm going to hand it off to Daniel to remember, Daniel, like 40% of those folks out there might not know about Welcoming Week, so I'm going to hand it off to you to tell us more.
Yes, thank you, Brianne. Thank you for the time. I'm excited to be talking with all of you today. Greetings from North Carolina. My coworker, my colleague, Jordan Crumroy is here as well. She'll be helping answer any of the Q&As. I do have to jump off a little bit early, but I hope to give you all great information before then. And then Jordan, my colleague, is here to sort of help answer any questions and help with any follow-ups. So before we get started into what is Welcoming Week, for those of you who are not familiar with Welcoming America, I'll take a couple of minutes here just to say that Welcoming America is a national nonprofit. As Brianne mentioned earlier, we're based right outside of Atlanta in Decatur, Georgia. And we started back in 2009, and we work with local communities. We believe that there's a lot that local communities can do to create programs, policies, and practices that make the communities more welcoming and inclusive for everyone, particularly immigrants and refugees. And so we work every day to help those local communities, whether they're nonprofit organizations that are providing direct services, that are doing advocacy work, that are in the arts space, economic development, whatever their area is, but they're interested in making their communities more welcoming for newcomers. We support nonprofit organizations, as well as municipal governments, so local city and county governments. So we have a network of about 300 members. And those include nonprofit organizations and municipal governments. Through the network, we provide technical assistance, coaching, resources. We connect members to one another. We uplift. best practices and innovations that are happening at the local level, and really are able to advance the needle and move the work from a programmatic perspective, but also from a narrative perspective at the local level when it comes to immigrant inclusion, welcoming and belonging work. And so out of that network came this idea from some of our earliest members, to really think about, is there an opportunity where we can create a space, a time in the year where we can celebrate, highlight, and spotlight the contributions and our local work as well, our belonging and welcoming work at the local level. And so out of that idea came Welcoming Week, which last year we celebrated 10 years of Welcoming Week. We are celebrating 11 years this year. And over the years, thousands and thousands of events have been hosted here in the United States. And in particular, over the past 2 years, we've seen a huge expansion of our Welcoming Week campaign into lots of places outside of the United States. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as well when we talk about Welcoming Week. The other thing that the other program, big program that we have at Welcoming America, aside from our network, is our certification. So we have what we call Certified Welcoming. And this is a certification process for municipal governments. And so we develop a standard. Our welcoming standard is a roadmap or a guide that provides policy recommendations, program and practice recommendations for local municipal governments, and we audit them. And if they meet the standard, then they're able to receive certification. We currently have 20 certified municipal governments, about 20 certified municipal governments across the country. And then once you're certified, the municipality has to recertify every 3 years, and we just announced Dayton's recertification this week. They were the first city in the United States to be certified. So that's one of our other big programs, again, coming out of the work that we did with their network. And then lastly, I'll mention our Welcoming International program. So we work with other national organizations and national governments in really thinking about the ways in which we can support local networks in each of our respective countries, and we sort of share best practices and work with each other. So if we can go on to the next slide. So we'll talk about Welcoming Week now, and I'll spend a few minutes and then hand it over to Brianne to talk about some of the work specific to this collaborative. So there's lots of reasons why we want to celebrate and participate in Welcoming Week, and I'll sort of highlight 4 main reasons and sort of the purpose for Welcoming Week. Its impact on sort of the global narrative and movement, the local spotlight, and ways in which it can be leveraged to build and expand on partnership, as well as an opportunity to really think about the ways in which your events can help bridge different communities together. So we'll go to the next slide around global narrative and movements. As I mentioned, Welcoming Week started in the United States almost 11 years ago. But over the past couple of years, we've seen that the Welcoming Week has become global and has been part of this global narrative and movement. And so Welcoming Week provides an opportunity for us to really think about issues of belonging, of migration in a global context, and to be part of a global movement, because we know that the work that we're doing here in the United States is not in a silo. It's happening all over the world as well. There are issues around migration and belonging and welcoming are things that are important to communities all over this world. And we're really glad to see and continue to expand the reach of Welcoming Week. Last year, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Germany, and many other countries participated in Welcoming Week. And this year we are expanding into Mexico. So we're working with 2 partner organizations in Mexico who are going to be launching Welcoming Week as well there. So we're excited to see this growth and want to see more and more folks here in the United States and around the world contribute to this global narrative and movement. And that's what Welcoming Week can serve for us and for communities. We'll go on to the local spotlight. So we go from sort of this global perspective to this local spotlight. At the end of the day, Welcoming Week is really about how you as a local community can spotlight the work, can influence the narrative and the leadership at the local level. to be supportive and inclusive of welcoming policies, of really highlighting leaders in this space, of thinking about ways to highlight and showcase the work that you're doing as well on the local ground and how others can get involved. And that sort of builds onto this other big chunk of the work for Welcoming Week and how it can be leveraged, which is on building and expanding partnerships. So if we can talk a little bit, we go to the next slide there. Building and expanding partnerships. So Welcoming Week provides an excellent opportunity, sort of a natural vehicle for communities to, for community organizations and for groups to create partnerships and to build on those partnerships. We at Welcoming America have partners and other national partners. Last year we had over 30 national partners and international partners actually who worked with us to disseminate Welcoming Week, to engage their networks, to provide content related to their particular work, whether it's the Library Association or the Alliance on Museums or refugee resettling organizations. There's lots of different ways that these national partners can really help us expand the movement and expand the campaign. And similarly, at the local level, you can leverage Welcoming Week to bring in your libraries, to bring in your YMCAs, your chambers of commerce, your economic development agencies, your community foundations, your corporate partners. So Welcoming Week can provide that avenue for you to engage deeper with your partners or broaden it to bring in new partners into this work and new individuals as well. And then that goes perfectly into the bridge building aspect of Welcoming Week. And we can go on to that, to the next slide, thanks. When we think about the ways in which Welcoming Week, if you really work around creating events that really bring together communities across your city that maybe represent different intersections, different identities. It's a really great way to bring together, whether you're talking about generational diversity, certainly folks with different immigration backgrounds, language backgrounds, faith and religious backgrounds, in being able to really create that bridge building work. And so we encourage folks to really use Welcoming Week to engage individuals and institutions and communities to strengthen your bridge building work, to really expand on those social cohesion muscles as a community, to be able to really, I think, be able to bring those folks together and to have meaningful dialogue and conversations. So I really think that those are some of the ways in which Welcoming Week can be useful for you as a tool, particularly when you think about the work that you're doing around community partnership. So I will talk a little bit about sort of our communications and our website, and sort of go through that pretty quickly, because I do want to be able to make sure that we have enough time to answer any questions. And I know Brianna also is going to share a little bit about how this all relates to this work. So we can go on to the next slide, please, to talk a little bit about sort of the daily themes. So Welcoming Week will have daily themes. These are the themes. A lot of these are based on our Welcoming Standard, but also we have a specific Refugee Sponsorship Day on September 16th, as well as Citizenship Day. And these are guides for people. Certainly, you are more than welcome to create events that touch on all these different themes in different dates of Welcoming Week. But for us, this is a way that we're going to think about our content and the way that we're going to leverage and utilize our social media platforms to push out content specific to these particular themes, and certainly welcome folks to do that as well if it's useful. But these are some of the ways in which we know that that folks can organize their work and really think about Welcoming Week in the intersections that it has with so many sort of daily aspects of life, and in particularly this year we're partnering really strongly around refugee sponsorship, and so having a specific theme around that is important, and we'll share more. Brianna will share more about that in a little bit. Can we go on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So we'll talk a little bit about the website and the toolkit. So the website for Welcoming Week is welcomingweek.org. And on the website, you'll be able to, if you're not already registered for us to receive updates, you can do that on the website. The website is also translated in different languages: English, Spanish, German, French, and our resources as well are translated in different languages. So on the website, you will also see the toolkit. And so if we can go on to the next slide. So the toolkit, in years past, if you're familiar with Welcoming Week, it's been done in a Google Doc. This year, it's right on the website. So if you go to welcomingweek.org, you hit on the toolkit tab, and it will take you to the toolkit, and you'll be able to click on the different pieces there. So we'll have communications tools such as talking points, social media tips, press release templates. We'll also have logos and visual assets. So if you're thinking about, using your Welcoming Week logo on your posters or your flyers, we have them in English, French, German, Italian, and Spanish. We also have welcomer signs and also social media templates that you can use. They'll be directly on Canva, so you can actually put in your information for your event. Everything's already created with everything that you need. All you need to put is where the event is taking place, the time and the date, and you'll be set to go. So we hope that the toolkit will provide you with some practical ways that you can utilize it so that you don't have to do extra work. And it also provides some event planning resources as well, a quick guide for that, some of the best practices on how to plan your events, and some event examples as well, and example Welcoming Week proclamations or resolutions if you want to engage your local municipal government in putting some of those out. We can go on to the next slide, please. So as you see there is a template for Welcoming Week and for the press release, I'm sorry. And so in it, you'll be able to download it and be able to update it and to share it out. If you have a communication shop and your organization, you can share this with them and they'll be able to share it out. And can we go on to the next slide, please? These are example of the I'm a welcomer signs. As you can see, we have them in lots of different languages. So when you click on the link there, it'll take you to a Google folder that has all of the different files in different languages for you to utilize. Let's go on to the next one. And here are some examples of the social media assets, the Canva. Right. So if you're familiar with Canva, it's very easy. It's very user-friendly. You'll be able to put in your information for Welcoming Week. There's different designs, different sizes and things like that, depending on whether you're trying to put something on Instagram or you're trying to print something out. So, and we'll continue to add more things. The great thing about the toolkit being on the website is that as we continue to add more assets and more information, you'll be able to see that there, and it'll be updated automatically. And we can go to the next slide, please. These are some of the talking points, right, about Welcoming Week and how you can utilize them, whether it's through your social media platforms or whether it's through your press release or when you're talking to partners about engaging them into this work. We can go on to the next slide, please. And then the event map. So if you are going to be hosting an event, we encourage everyone to list those events on the website. So when you go to welcomingweek.org, there's a tab called Events, and on there you can add your events. Right now we have about 31 events showing. We know that there's lots more out there, and we're just really encouraging people to put them on there for a number of reasons. One, it allows us to keep track of the impact of Welcoming Week and how many events are being hosted. But two, it also allows for other community organizations or other community members who are interested in participating in Welcoming Week to be able to easily find events in their local community. So we really encourage folks to do that, and it's a very easy process. So if you just go to welcomingweek.org, hit on the events tab, you'll be able to add your events there. Let's go on to the next slide, please.
Great. Let's see. And actually, I just dropped the link to the map in the chat there too, so you all can check it out. So now we want to hear from you. Pull up that Slido again. Which of these resources are you most excited to jump in there and use? The event map, You can check and see if there are any events or enter your own. The core talking points, they really are quite eloquent. I'm not trying to insult any participants, but they're better than I could come up with. Let's see, what else do we have here? Social media templates on Canva, not sure yet, the welcomer signs, press release. Let's see what folks are ready to use. Yeah, it looks like everybody's ready to use core talking points and the social media templates. Impressive. Yeah, and that's followed by the event map, the I'm a welcomer sign. It's a classic. And yeah, there's about 20% of you out there who aren't entirely sure yet. But we're gonna see if we can give you some examples. Let's see. You can go ahead to the next slide, Grace. So I'm going to do a little prefacing here before I move on. Daniel just shared the purpose of Welcoming Week, and basically I want to preface this by saying the next portion of our webinar here, that basically you could actually sign off now, but please don't, and still have a very successful, an extremely purposeful Welcoming Week, right? If you're fostering belonging, if you're having a gathering of refugees, if you're gathering community members, if you're just, posting your signs or what have you, that really is filling the purpose of Welcoming Week, right? So I just want to kind of preface this next half, for that. Let me see. But we also know from, working with you all in the Refugee Welcome Collective, thank you for folks who have filled out our surveys, that recruitment is also a high priority for all of you. So even though it's not a necessary component of a successful Welcoming Week, we wanted to provide you in this next half with just some ways that you could leverage Welcoming Week in cultivating new co-sponsors if you wanted to. Let's see, and in thinking about how you might incorporate co-sponsor cultivation into Welcoming Week, we are going to talk about a few different options. Our goal is to give you options that might be super quick and easy, right? If you just have like 3 hours that you want to dedicate to co-sponsor cultivation, or if you have several days, right? And you're going to do a more expansive Welcoming Week option. But either of those are good, right? And so we're going to try to give you several different options, whether you have 3 hours or 20. We also realize that staff on the call today represent programs in various stages. So you might be just starting out with co-sponsorship or not have a co-sponsorship program, or you might have a robust program. But even those of us with robust programs, recruitment can still be a challenge or what have you. So that being said, we just saw an amazing collection of Welcoming Week tools from Welcoming America. And before we dive in to some recruitment options, if you could all through the Slido, take a moment to think about some of the assets and tools you're already working with, right? So some of these options are, let's see, do you have like 4 or more previous recruitment contacts that you've reached out to that are kind of on your to reach out again list? If not, do you have 4+ people or organizations you're thinking about that you want to reach out to? Do you have current and past volunteers and sponsors? Do you have a landing page on your website with volunteer and sponsorship opportunities? Let me see. The one is an online or in-person info session. That's basically asking if you already have some sort of periodic or occasional, either online or in-person info session for people who are interested in getting involved. Do you have a Facebook or Instagram account? We're just thinking about assets that you already have. And one is like a tabling roadshow, right? You kind of have some like flyers and some sign-up sheets and things like that. Yeah, so everybody's doing pretty good. And thank you, Grace, for scrolling down. Yeah, and so actually a lot of y'all have tabling setups, previous recruitment contacts, nice, 60%. Let me see, and online or in-person info sessions. Let's see. Thank you. And yeah, and wow, 73% have some of those contacts they need to follow up with, and 80% are thinking of folks. So yeah, so we're in good shape. Let's see where we can go from here. Next slide, Grace. So I want to share with you all kind of some ways that we can put this all together, right? And there are many different ways that you could do this. These are just a few ideas. And like I said, we're also coming at this from like one of the more like time effective, so there's lots of different activities that we could share, but these are some that we think are kind of like the most effective, the most bang for your buck. So one way you could celebrate Welcoming Week is basically just celebrate Welcoming Week by reaching out to your previous and new recruitment contacts. If you have previous contacts that you need to follow up with, I know I am always looking for, like, oh, if they were going to get back to you, right? Or like, if they had expressed interest, but you haven't followed up in a while, right? We're all good at cold calling and reaching out and making connection. But every time you have kind of like an additional reason, right, to have a touch point with that previous or future community sponsor, it's great to have another touch point, right? So this Welcoming Week, this is something you could do in just, you might even be able to do it in 1 hour, but like 3 to 5 hours, depending on how deep you have to dig to find their email addresses and phone numbers and the last time you talked to them. Or for example, those of you who said that you have a few organizations in mind or people in mind that you want to reach out to. Sometimes it's just great to have a reason, right? And this can be your reason of Welcoming Week, right? To reach out to them. So, and one best practice is to like call and email. And you can I'd also suggest that you say in both your, call or email or like voicemail, like, oh, and I'm going to send an email also, or put in your email like, oh, and I'll give you a call as well. But you can go back to those talking points and just quickly say, hey, it's Welcoming Week. And so I wanted to reach out to you and, check in. And you could also include, if you wanted to, like in your email, your I'm a welcomer pic. This is my demonstration. Daniel mentioned the sign, right? I printed out mine. So basically it could even be a selfie, right? Of like you with the I'm a welcomer picture. And then you could include that in your email just as a reason to reach out. And also in that email, you could include a few of the talking points, which explains what Welcoming Week is. Thank them for being interested, right, in welcoming newcomers. And then you include kind of your next call to action in that email. And a good way to have effective calls to action, is to really think about what is the most doable next step for them, right? You're going to be reaching out to them for Welcoming Week. So if you're doing something for Welcoming Week, you could, invite them. But even if you're not doing anything additionally, right, you can just send them an email and leave them a voicemail, share the photo with them, tell them a little bit about Welcoming Week, thank them for their interest in welcoming. And then, like I said, you're going to think of, okay, for this person, what is the most doable thing? Like, even if you're having a Welcoming Week celebration, if it's like something at night and that person has like small children, right, that you can always invite them, but that might not be so doable. So the trick, with recruitment is to think about, for that person, what's the most doable next step? So for example, if you have that regular info session, I think about like 60 or 70% of you said that you did, invite them to the info session, right? That's always a great next step. For those that have, it's your local Rotary Club or a faith community, right? Sometimes if they're not coming to your info session, sometimes you can go to them, right? And so say like, hey, it's, Welcoming Week. Would I be able to come to your next meeting or group and present? Let's see. And one tip that I have with that is, like I said, make it something that's most doable. So even if someone says like, oh, I'm not sure if we're able to like fit you onto the agenda, right? Or I'm not sure if we can do that. A really doable question is also like, oh, well, it's your next meeting. Would you ask the rest of the group if I could come to the following meeting, right? Or like if we could put this on the agenda. So sometimes you're putting someone in a situation they're not really sure that they can talk for the group. But if you can't come to the next meeting, another doable ask is, well, would you ask the group if I could come to a meeting, or if you could add me to the agenda? Let me see. So those are some ideas. Like I said, you could do that in 3 to 5 hours. And yeah, who doesn't love a good reason to reach out to previous contacts who you haven't heard from? Next slide. Daniel mentioned the press release in the toolkit. And once again, that's something that you could do in 3 to 5 hours. Let me see, you could send it to, if you're writing it, might as well send it to everyone, local media, newspaper, television, news, even like if there are any local podcasts in your area. And some of the ways that you could customize that template is by including a quote from your director or a staff member. Many of you, your resettlement offices submitted your R&P abstracts. And you likely included volunteer hours in there. And so if you haven't seen that, ask your director about your R&P abstracts, and if there was a number of volunteer hours or value of volunteer hours in there. That's a great stat that you could maybe easily pull and stick in that press release. You also want to include in that press release a call to action for community members interested in co-sponsorship. So lots of you said that you have that landing page, you have your contact info, and if you have an info session, stick the date and access information for that next info session in that press release as well. And I just want to mention, even if you're not having an event, you could still do a press release because maybe your local media just wants to highlight Welcoming Week, right? And how your organization contributes to welcoming. So even if you're not doing a specific event, you could still go ahead and send that press release about Welcoming Week, and also include this contact information and next steps for folks interested in volunteering. Next slide. Daniel mentioned the map, and the map is great. I put the link in the chat. So you can check the map for Welcoming Week events already planned in your community, right? That you might not know about. So maybe your YMCA or your city government or many other partners are already having an event. And then one great way to leverage that for recruitment is to see if you can collaborate and include recruitment in their events. So for example, you could ask them, oh, would you mind if I, had a table at your events? You can bring your tabling tools and roadshow and everything. Or depending on the event, right? If it's like a musical performance or a panel discussion, you could even go ahead and ask, oh, could I do an announcement? Or if I provided a little bit of information about our organization, could you share that? And then also you want to think about kind of like your point of contact, how you can kind of like capture interested folks' information, right? So I know that this is old school, but if it's the type of events where people are sitting down, I mentioned a recruitment table, but also it's amazing how many more kind of interested folks you can get if you just pass around that old-fashioned clipboard. So go ahead and ask the organizers or what have you, if they mind, if you have an interest sign-up sheet, if you could pass it around, and they would also announce that at the beginning as well. You can also, there are some people who understandably are not going to want to put their contact information on a sheet that's being passed around, but you can put as little as possible there, just like first name and email address, right? And you can also, if you use something like SurveyMonkey or JotForm or something like that, or if you have an interest form already on your website, you can put a QR code on there as well. And like most of your people are going to fall into those two categories, right? They're either fine with putting their first name and their email address on it, or they're not, but they're familiar with QR codes and are going to open up that, that QR code. So that just does really increase like the success if folks are sitting down, pass it around. Okay, next slide. Let's see. So another, very common option is to go ahead and host an event yourself. Some of them that I really like are some organizations have done, have partnered with a local university or an arts organization to do like a chalk mural in a high traffic location. And yeah, the great thing about that is usually if you find the right partner, the right like arts organization or university, they can take on the bulk of the artistic and creative work. Also, if you plan it in an already high traffic area, you're not trying to like recruit a lot of people to come, right? The people are already there. You can still blast it out to your network and the welcomers but also you're relying on kind of traffic that's already there in that spot. So I feel like that's an event that gets a lot of bang for your buck, right? And you can also there have, some information about your organization and a place to sign up. Also, if you are able to go there for, a little while and table, you can talk to people and get their information. Sometimes it's also helpful in those situations, if it's an event where people are sitting down, to have something, whether it's candy or like welcoming stickers or something like that. That's kind of a good point of contact that gives you an excuse to go up to people and say, oh, can I, give you this welcoming week sticker, and then say, oh, would you be interested in getting involved? Provide me with your name and email address. So that's a thought as well, a good like point of contact option. Let's see, some other folks have done some really great like forums, for example, inviting different organizations that are involved in refugee welcome to do kind of a panel discussion or like kind of a mini conference or what have you. And actually one thing you can check the once you plan this event, of course, you are going to enter it into the 2023 map, but it's also fun, I believe, if you Google, to look at the 2022 map, because that gives you some really great ideas. There's some good ideas in the Welcoming America Toolkit, but also it's fun to look back at 2022 and see what some other people and organizations did, some of which are local resettlement agencies and some are other partner organizations, but that have some great events that you could get some inspiration from. And events, are usually a little bit more time intensive. And so that could take anywhere from 30 to 60 hours. And like I said, either if you're going to do the event, post it on this year's map or check out last year's map for some cool ideas. Next slide. Okay, so this is an idea also of how to leverage Welcoming Week for recruitment. You could use Welcoming Week to basically recruit attendees for an info session. So the idea here is that you would actually schedule your info session for a week or two after Welcoming Week, right? And then during Welcoming Week, you are going to kind of like use Welcoming Week to recruit some like certain attendees to that info session. And one way that you could do that is by using, actually a lot of you said that you have current or previous volunteers. So how you could do that is reach out to them, possibly individually, but you'd probably have a template email and say, hi, so-and-so, we really have a goal of recruiting 3 new co-sponsors in the next month, and it's going to be Welcoming Week, and we were hoping that you could help, right? And then you could ask a handful of your current and previous volunteers, during Welcoming Week, right? Would you be willing to like post your picture on social media, right? Or send out an email to your friends and family and say, it's welcoming week. Pull in one or two of those talking points, and then ask the volunteer or sponsor to share why they decided to volunteer or sponsor. And so then also they can say, we're looking to recruit more co-sponsors. Please let me know and come to this info session with me, right? So you're kind of using the welcoming week and the fact that some of your sponsors and volunteers are going to do those postings and hopefully recruit some friends or some other people from their organizations. And you would actually invite them to the info session too, and see if there were a way that you could quickly, like incorporate. Maybe all the previous and current volunteers would go around quickly and say what motivated them to get involved. Let me see. Yeah, and of course you can ask them, they can use those things on their social media. You can ask them to, do different hashtags so that you can post it on your social media too. I believe if you check the toolkit, there's some instructions from Welcoming America as well on how you can loop that in as well. So that's an idea, to like not have the info session during welcoming week, but to really use that welcoming week time to get some of your current and previous volunteers to really go out and bring at least one or two other people, right, to that welcoming week or to that info session. Let's see, next slide. Another event that you can do, and really I think this one, it takes 5 to 10 hours. It's not necessarily like, you don't necessarily get a high number, you do get some, right, of people back, but collaborating with your local library is actually something that, like, once you do it, like 1 year, you kind of like establish those connections, and it's probably something that you could do ongoing if your local library isn't already celebrating Welcoming Week. And once again, this is kind of low because, like incorporating the arts or the university into your chalk mural, most libraries really kill at putting this together, right? So you don't have to do too much work, but you can reach out to your local library and see if they'll do kind of like a Welcoming Week related book display. Ask them if you can put the sign-up sheet, there. Make sure you come back to collect it, or arrange for them to send it to you. You could ask them if you could provide bookmarks with your organization and opportunities to co-sponsor on there. You can also ask them if they have any book groups or like children's story hours, if they'd be able to do a specific one for Welcoming Week. And then once again, supply those bookmarks. The pass around, like clipboard, like I said, is even better than the like, oh, take this bookmark home and contact us, right? Passing around that clipboard or asking folks there at the event, or asking whoever's there coordinating to do that is great. And then once again, as applicable, if you're doing any of these story hours or book groups, go ahead and post that to the event map. And like I said, some of these things are things that if you kind of like get them established 1 year, they're great ongoing relationships in future. Next slide. I wanted to mention as well that RWC provides one-on-one support and technical assistance. So if there's any of these items that you want to meet with someone one-on-one with and just kind of talk through how you might do this at your organization, you can visit our website there at refugeewelcome.org and sign up for a one-on-one session. And you can kind of talk through any of these items, or like if you don't have an info session yet, and you want to talk through with someone how you might set up an info session, you can probably reach out to your national. They might have some great tips and templates, but you can also sign up on our website for a one-on-one support. And we'd also be, if anybody's struggling with kind of like the Canva templates and things like that, we're not experts, but we'd be happy to, to walk you through doing that as well. Next slide. Okay, I also wanted to check really quickly, and actually, you know what, Grace, I think we're going to skip this one. Let's go to the next one. We can ask them this during Q&A. Let's see, that one was asking for your ideas. You can submit some ideas during Q&A as well. Let me see. So I'm curious, after learning more about Welcoming Week and some of the ways that you could use the tools, do you think that you might use any of these tools or you do any of these activities for recruitment, let us know. Oh yeah, you gotta love a good opportunity to reach out to your contacts and the press release. And once again, I feel like once you get in the habit of the press release, even if you know, like hopefully somebody will do a really great profile on you, but you know, even if it's like a super busy news week that week, once you do it once, you kind of you know, can get in the routine of doing it every year. Let's see. So yeah, and yeah, kind of using Welcoming Week for your online info session and really looping in your current volunteers and sponsors and whatever your goal would be, whether it's like 3 new co-sponsors or 1 new, you know, or like you could kind of even put, really ask every co-sponsor or volunteer to think of like 1 person that they really think can come to that info session. All right, wonderful. And yeah, and some of you are also going to reach out to your local library and check for others events. So that's great as well. Let me see, next slide. All right, so we're ready for our Q&A. I'm happy to answer any questions. Jordan is also here with Welcoming America. If you'd go ahead and just let us know any questions or comments that you had, and we're happy to respond. And also that question that we skipped was about what events are we missing, right? Or what ideas are we missing? If anyone out there has some really great ideas of how to recruit sponsors during Welcoming Week, go ahead and add that to the Slido as well. Oh, wow, you guys are on it, right? When will dates and media be available for 2024 for planning and purposes? I could make a guess, although Jordan, do you have a better than a guess?
That is the question of the hour. We have not released that yet. We typically do in the spring, but hopefully next year we'll have it earlier on in the year. But it's always mid-September, in case that's helpful. Great.
Yeah, so Welcoming Week is always mid-September. And yeah, and you'll have that spring. And usually you guys start doing like you start putting up the toolkit in like June, right? Like May or June or what have you on your website.
Yeah, we should have it earlier next year.
Yeah, yeah. So that person who is planning for 2024, mark it on your calendar. But in the spring, they'll have the exact dates, although it's usually in September. And then, you know, around June or what have you, they'll start having the toolkit there. And I am curious if anybody has any, you know, like other good ideas that they might include. Yeah, we will have this available. We will send the link via the post email. It's also going to be posted to our resource library. So yeah, we hope you check it out. Yeah, no, and I am excited. Those of you who haven't heard about Welcoming Week, you know, before, it is kind of a nice national movement, and a lot of people in our communities are already doing it. So it is just a great opportunity. And like I said, you can host your own event for Welcoming Week, you know, or you can just celebrate by posting to your social media and doing a few of the quick and easy ideas that we had today. Let me see. So I do want to go ahead and thank our presenters today, Daniel and Jordan. We would like to hear from you and receive any feedback you have. So we ask that you take a moment right now to complete a quick survey. You can use your phone to follow the QR code on the screen. We'll also drop a link in the chat. And yeah, if you wouldn't mind going ahead and opening up that up right now, it'll just take you a moment or two. On behalf of Refugee Welcome Collective, thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much.